Is it pronounced data or data? This is Beer in Front, part of the Beer Media Group. Every week I'll talk to people in and around the beer world and get their stories all about beer. That's Beer in Front, and it's coming up now. Welcome to episode 287 of Beer in Front. I'm your host, Dave Zalatoris, and Beer in Front is a charter member of the Beer Media Group. We got numbers, we got data or data, however you want to pronounce it. This week I'm talking to Matt Gacioch, who's an economist over at the Brewers Association. We're going to take a dive into some of the numbers and business of beer. Matt was a great interview, so definitely stay tuned for that because I had a lot of fun talking to him. I'm still doing dry January, but I found a beer, a non-alcoholic beer from a local Illinois brewery, Pipeworks, and I'm going to have the NA Ninja versus Unicorn as the Beer in Front. I also mentioned a couple weeks ago I recorded a bunch in the last couple of months because I knew I was going to do this, so I also have a review of Turbo Reaper that I had a while back. I'll include that on in the show as well. So if you want to hear about a regular beer, that'll be coming up as well. I mentioned at the beginning of the month that January is a rough month for breweries. So even if you're not drinking this month, you could still go out and support them. Last week, I stopped over at Hop Butcher, picked up some hop water from them. This week, I plan on stopping at Old Irving to pick up. They have a new hop water variant out, if you will, so I'm going to pick that up this week. And also, this is going to be the true test. Revolution is releasing the last of the Death Star series for 2025/2026. So I'm going to pick that up this week and forget about it until February 1st. But definitely, if you're not drinking this month, still go out there, support local breweries because it is a rough month. Next week's show, I've got nothing. There's no guests. There's no interviews. There's nothing. I don't even know what I'm going to have on the show. So if you have any ideas or suggestions, you know what to do. Get a hold of me, Dave at beerinfront.com, or find me on all the socials at Beer in Front. But I'll figure something out. But right now I'm at a loss. Before we get on with the rest of the show, I'll give you my dry January update so far. So I'm recording this on the 17th. I'm still down weight. That's good. I do feel better throughout the day. Now, I didn't lose any weight this week. I was off all week, so I wasn't walking to the train or walking around at work. So it's kind of a low-key staycation. But, you know, I'm still not drinking anything like that. But I will say this, like my sleep is worse. Like, I don't know what it is. I sleep like total garbage right now, and I'm getting headaches all the time. So I don't know, but it's 17 days into this, so it's not like my body needs alcohol. I didn't drink that much to begin with, but that's the one weird thing. Like, I'm not sleeping great. Now, granted, I'm not exhausted throughout the day. That part's good, but I could use more sleep, and these headaches are killing me. So I don't know, if come February 1st when I have a beer, if my headache goes away, I don't know if I'm going to do this month anymore. In beer and beverage news, Dos Equis, they're bringing back the most interesting man in the world. Actor Jonathan Goldsmith is making his return after 10 years, so look for those ads coming out soon from Dos Equis. Here in Chicago, Goose Island's coming out with the new barrel-aged beer, Nightcap Cuvée. This is going to be a bourbon barrel-aged stout, and they're going to finish it in a blend of different wine casks. So no release date yet, but look for that from Goose Island. Ska Brewing in Durango, Colorado, they're going to come out with the new non-alcoholic hemp THC beverage. This is called Ska Low Dose. This has 1.5 milligrams of THC. Looks like they're going to have a few different flavors, a lemon lime, a passion fruit mango, and a dragon fruit. So if you're around Colorado, you got to check out the Ska Low Dose. How in the world has the TV show Survivor have 50 seasons? Well, their 50th season, I guess, is coming out soon, and Dogfish Head is coming out with, in collaboration with the show, a beer called Coconut Etiquette. This is going to be a hazy IPA with coconut and passion fruit. Going to be 6.2% alcohol. I'm assuming it's going to come out around the same time the show kicks off, so look for that next month from Dogfish Head. A congressman from Indiana is trying to push the hemp ban that I talked about a few weeks ago, trying to push that back for a couple of years. This is a bipartisan bill, but it was introduced by James Baird, who's a Republican from Indiana. This has gotten support from both sides of the political aisle. They want to kick this can down the road till 2028, so we'll see what happens with that, but at least we have some common sense from the people in Washington. I've mentioned this countless times before about the lines being blurred between traditional products that are non-alcoholic and they're going into this hard seltzer world. Well, now Popsicle has come out with a hard grape. This is a seltzer, 5% alcohol. Looks like a popsicle. I'm reading this over on my Beer Buzz. It's going to be produced by Two Roads Brewing in Connecticut, but I don't know. I mean, looks like a popsicle to me. So we'll see what happens with that. Sierra Nevada is going to come out with Springfest. This is an IPA. I guess it's going to come out in the spring. So, but what's really cool about this is that they're using organic hops, sustainably sourced barley. They have a commitment to source half of their ingredients through sustainable farming by 2030. So I think that's really cool. Look for the bright yellow can, Springfest IPA from Sierra Nevada. The non-alcoholic market's improving. American Airlines is going to, starting February 1st, have Athletic, their Free Wave Hazy IPA. It's going to be available on flights. It's the first NA beer that the airline is going to serve, so you can catch it on flights. It's also going to be available in the flagship and Admirals Club Lounge. So if you're traveling on American Airlines, you could pick up an Athletic. In my neighborhood, Beguile Brewing on the 31st of January. They're going to have what's called Beguile and Friends. This is beer and cider friends, $65 a person. I mean, the lineup they have is phenomenal. I'm not going to list them all here because it's a lot. But you have a lot of great breweries right there on Malt Row. You have some cideries from all across the city and country. This looks like a fantastic lineup. So if you're near me in the North Center neighborhood of Chicago and on Malt Row, you got to check out Beguile and Friends on the 31st of January. And finally, this is a wild story that I was reading on Brewbound. Stoli, the vodka company, now the owner, Stoli Group USA, is going to move into liquidation. But reading the article, this is like so bizarre. So they filed for bankruptcy after years and years of disputes with the Russian government. Now, according to the release, the Stoli Group had 25 years of legal disputes with the Russian state over the brand ownership and control. The company condemned Russia's invasion of the Ukraine like 4 years ago, and Stoli was hit with sophisticated cyber attacks that targeted its international operations. That's just a wild story, but they say there's enough product to last a while, but Stoli vodka, like in the U.S. portion of it, is going to be in liquidation. All right, there's late breaking news then. I had the episode all out ready to put out, but Alarmist Brewing, they just announced on social media that they're closing their doors for good at the end of the business day on Sunday, February 1st. Alarmist has been around for 10 years or so, putting out some award-winning beers, really not cool news here in the city of Chicago. So if you're around for the next couple of weeks, definitely check out Alarmist before they close for good. Another reminder, people, if you like a place, go visit them, buy a pint, buy a six pack, because not a good time for breweries, but this is just not cool out of Chicago with Alarmist closing. All right, welcome back. Craft beer is huge business. The industry is responsible for almost 450,000 jobs in the U.S., and the contribution to our economy is a staggering $72.5 billion. Today, I'm joined by Matt Gacioch, staff economist at the Brewers Association. Matt digs into the data behind craft beer, covering everything from market trends and consumer behavior to the broader economic forces shaping the brewing industry, and helps breweries turn numbers into actionable insight. Matt, thanks so much for joining today.
Thanks for having me, Dave. I thought starting out with a Matthew, I was in trouble. That's how I was referred to growing up when I'm in
Yeah.
trouble. But no, it's
Yeah.
really great to be with you here today. I'm excited for the conversation.
Yeah. Like before we get started on beer and the numbers and everything, can you tell folks a little about yourself?
Sure. Yeah. So, as you said, staff economist with the Brewers Association. Got my start in craft beer 16 years ago, back in 2010. I worked at a couple different breweries on the operations side, as well as the marketing side. And yeah, I've kind of bounced around in my career a little bit, but fortunately found my way back to craft beer full time a few years ago with the BA. And so yeah, spend most of my time digging into the numbers, collecting some data from breweries throughout the country to really get a finger on the pulse for what's happening with craft beer, as well as to hopefully offer some insights that will allow brewery owners to make more strategic business decisions.
Do you remember what that beer was, whether it was craft or otherwise, that like turned the light bulb on and you were like, this is what I want? This made you into a beer person.
I actually do. I remember the exact beer. So I was an undergrad at the University of Michigan, and Arbor Brewing Company had an IPA called Sacred Cow that a buddy, it was college. I was drinking things frequently that weren't craft, and I had a buddy bring over a six pack, and I was like, wait a minute. Beer could be something else. And yeah, it totally flipped the switch so that by the time I was graduating, I was primarily trying to find a way to, force my way into the craft beer industry. And was lucky enough to get a great first spot out at Left Hand Brewing Company in Longmont, Colorado.
Yeah, going through college, you're like, it's all right. I'll eat ramen. I'll sacrifice on food. I want to spend a
Yeah.
little more on the good beer.
That is more true than you'd know. Yeah.
Well, craft beer, it feels like it's in a very different place post pandemic than it was prior to 2020. It's no longer brew it and they will come. There won't be lines around the corner. How would you describe the current state of the industry?
Yeah, yeah. So we around the BA offices, we actually use that same baseball movie analogy that you just referenced there. That for a while it was the field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. And over the past 5 years, it's really turned much more into Moneyball, where it's turning into looking at all of the nitty gritty details, looking at market data, looking at their own sales data, and really being strategic on trying to fill a niche in order to compete against some of the bigger companies. And just generally craft beer of the 2010s was booming. It was that kind of experience where you got to hang your shingle, and it could be outside of the city center, or it could be kind of tucked away in a warehouse district, and there would be lines out the door. And now what we're seeing in the last 5-ish years is really signs of a maturing market. One where you have to have kind of the real connection to the consumers, find the place within the market, and fill a need, as it were. And that could look very different. That could be products that are connecting to a certain consumer group's identity. That could be, the neighborhood watering hole, the kind of third space concept, where this is, where your neighborhood comes to gather. But really understanding what that brewery's place in the market is vitally important. And I know in this conversation, we'll inevitably talk about kind of openings, closings, things like that. But just at a high level, it's really, craft beer at this moment is at a very different place than it was 10 years ago, for sure.
I remember years ago, like, as a failed home brewer, you always think, oh, my stuff is really good. You think about maybe doing something. And I remember back then, you're reading articles like you really need to start super big because you're going to expand.
Yeah.
Now everything just seems to be you have to be the best brewery in your city, your neighborhood, depending on your area. So I think that's changed where you really have to start by your general area, and then hopefully you get to grow.
Yeah, it's only gotten more and more competitive to get into the distribution game. And at this point, I mean, that's for a couple reasons. So at this point, there are a number of national beer brands and craft beer brands that are just known in markets throughout the country. Consumers know that, consumers are feeling pinched right now, and generally they're starting to stick a little bit more with what they know and what's familiar. And so it's kind of tougher to break into that scene. Layer on top of that the huge explosion of beverage alcohol products outside of beer. The ready to drink cocktails, your, different FMBs, all of this that's for the most part competing against for the same shelf space. In some markets, you have THC beverages. These are all competing for that exact same shelf space. So it is really harder than ever to get into the distribution game. And so, but that's not to say that that there's not places for new market entrants. And a lot of that comes exactly like you're saying, finding where there's a neighborhood, where there's a geography that can and is demanding, another physical tap room or brew pub. And that's where we're seeing more new entrants into the space, coming in these days.
Well, we're recording this on the 16th. So now we're almost 1 year into the added tariffs, which
Yeah.
seem to change every day when I pull up the newspaper. One thing that breweries and brewers talk about constantly is cost. How is this pressuring brewers to even try to manage their cost?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's tough. It's not just brewers, right? Like
Yeah.
any producer, any business with uncertainty is going to find it harder to plan for 6-10 months in the future, and that's just really hard for brewers in particular. They've really felt the tariffs in terms of aluminum, where a lot of the aluminum that goes into can manufacturing is coming from abroad, as well as equipment that's coming in, that's imported. So, whether that's a tank from China or a brew system from Germany, or like whatever it is, that's where a lot of the tariffs are being felt so far. But that's not the only cost pressure right now. Breweries are facing what their consumers are facing. Big inflation over the past, getting closer to a decade, at this point. And sure, inflation has slowed somewhat, but it's still faster. That it's still going up.
Yeah.
It might be going up slower, but it's still going up. And for the most part, beer prices haven't been able to keep pace. A lot of brewers are really mindful that their consumers are also being stretched. Their wallets are being stretched by these same inflationary, tariff pressures, and so they don't want to bump up their prices too much and price out consumers. And So what that means with rising costs and revenues staying about the same, it just means tighter margins, which is tough. And one other thing I'll say, in addition to all of those pressures, is the fact that during the kind of craft beer boom of the 2010s, a lot of breweries signed 10-year leases on the real estate that they're occupying. And, look at us now in 2026, we're right at about 10 years. And so when these leases are coming up for renewal, a lot of, it's kind of a double-edged sword. A lot of these breweries revitalized a neighborhood and brought up the property values in the neighborhood they occupy. And so when they're going to re-sign a lease, their landlords are saying, "Hey, look, to keep up with market rates, it's got to be this much increase." So, yeah, there's just lots of pressures right now on brewers.
Well, I mean, you kind of alluded to it earlier, but along those lines, like we've seen more brewery closures than openings in the last couple of years, and
Yeah.
that could sound alarming, but I don't really see it so much. How do you think people should interpret those numbers?
Yeah, so it's a matter of kind of perspective on this. For every individual brewery that closes, that is the end of, all the blood, sweat, and tears that went into making this particular business run, all the long hours, all the passion, and it is truly devastating, to those that story hurts. That hurts the people running the business. That hurts, the community that has been regulars there. But the reality, kind of like the bigger context around it, is that brewery closings, kind of always have happened, and for all different reasons. What's really standing out right now is the difference between the rate of brewery openings and brewery closings. For a long time, even if there were closings, there would be 4 breweries that were ready to take that space and get it back up and running, as quicker than you could imagine. And now, with brewery opening rates dropping significantly for all these reasons, it's tougher to get money from a bank because it's not as for sure of a thing for a lot of these businesses that would consider opening up. Because of that, we're seeing a lot more breweries. I'm not sure how it is in Chicago where you are, but I know in Denver, where some of these facilities are sitting shuttered for a while until someone else comes to hopefully open up. And so, it you definitely feel it. And I think one of the things that is most stark is how different it is today from where it was, a few years ago. But if I'm gonna put some numbers on it for you, and you'll have to stop me if I just start spitting out too many stats. It's just how my brain works. But in 2024, we saw about a net decrease of 1% of breweries. Through the first of 2025, it was about that same rate in terms of closures. We are our membership team at the BA and myself, we're doing all of our 2025 data cleanup, make sure everything is perfect before kind of releasing full 2025 numbers. But what we're seeing isn't any kind of like falling off of a cliff in terms of number of breweries. It's a decline. That's very different. But yeah, it's again kind of the sign of a more mature industry where you will have some down years, some up years, but you won't have explosive growth or precipitous decline at the same time.
Are there business models in 2026 that are working better than others right now?
Um, so so being 2 weeks in, it's a little early to call the 2026 numbers, but I will say, looking back at 2025, what we're seeing in the data is kind of 2 main buckets that have been weathering the storm a little bit better than others. So one is the really hospitality focused model. We were talking about this earlier, kind of smaller neighborhood, but in addition to quality beer, and I'm careful to say that the beer, eh, with so many breweries in the market, you have to have great beer. That is absolute table stakes. But um, with high quality beer, a lot of these kind of neighborhood focused models are really thinking about the experience and the hospitality aspect of their business more. And so whether that's putting in a more significant food menu or bringing in activities, there's breweries with indoor pickleball courts, there's breweries with disc golf courses, that have some land. There's and then programming that is, trying to draw in different folks. So kind of that model seems that there's ways to really succeed there. And then like swinging to the way other end of the pendulum, are the largest distributing breweries, craft breweries, and a lot of this is because they have the benefit of economies of scale. They have a little bit more purchasing power with their suppliers. Can be more strategic in with inputs, price of inputs changing as they are. They also have these relationships with wholesalers and retailers that give them a little bit more sway. So kind of those two models are the ones that we've seen kind of doing the best at this moment in time.
I mean, a couple things that I've noticed, and like last year, we saw big growth in non-alcoholic, even like lower alcohol beers, where
Yeah.
I've read a few articles like, oh, this is the year of the low alcohol beer, kind of
Yeah.
like, the last few years. Oh, it's the year of the lager. It's the year of the lager. So everyone says it's going to be the low alcohol beers, but definitely non-alcoholic beers have been exploding.
Yeah.
Do you see that continuing?
I it is really hard to see it not
Yeah.
continuing. And whether it'll keep like the explosive growth it's on, is tough to say. It's still in the kind of low to mid single digits in terms of volume of beer sold. This isn't a huge part of the beer market yet. So I think there is definitely still runway for NA to grow. But look, there's breweries producing NA products are those that are understanding that consumers are evolving, and now there's the opportunity for consumers to have amazing high quality craft beer for different occasions, right? So, yeah, when you're sitting with your buddies and you could, break out that big bourbon barrel aged stout, and enjoy sipping on that. But it's maybe a totally different story if you want to go out hiking and you want something to, I'm in Colorado. It's just, what we do. But if you want a summit beer, sometimes it's nice to have it be lower alcohol, so you feel like you can get back to the trailhead safely. Or if you're spending time with family, or if you want to do different things. So being able to, so NA has kind of understood that those occasions are available and are really trying to meet consumers where they're at there. And I think that is kind of mirrored by the small to mid beers that you're referencing as well, where it's like, look, there might be some alcohol here, but it's not going to be something that is going to take the rest of your day off the table
Yeah.
necessarily. And so yeah, I think whether, yeah, in those lower alcohol categories or, just any other new products that could connect with consumers in different occasions is something that brewers are going to try to glom onto for sure.
Yeah, and I've always talked to like a buddy of mine. We do a Midwest show every couple weeks. And, we were mentioning for the NA growth, I think, if you get an established brewery that puts out a non-alcoholic version of their flagship beer,
Yeah.
that will start to, make it grow even more. And then yesterday, I just happened to be at my bottle shop, and Pipeworks, which is a local Illinois, a Chicago brewery here, they have an NA version of probably their flagship Ninja versus Unicorn. I'm like, I mean, that's a great idea. That would get
Yeah.
somebody that like, maybe I don't want one of the big players like your athletics, but
Yeah.
I know Pipeworks, I'm going to grab this. So
Yeah.
hopefully more breweries will latch onto an idea like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're definitely seeing that. There's challenges, right? To put
Mhm.
out, it's a different beast than
Yeah.
brewing, beer with at full strength. There's there's big challenges for NA on draft, which a lot of breweries do most of their business kind of across their bar. And so if they don't have a way to package, then that becomes tough to get into it and do that in a safe way. So there's challenges, but you know, brewers are about the most innovative and creative and scrappy bunch of people you could ever imagine. So if there's an opportunity, brewers are going to find it.
Also, on the way other end of the spectrum, there's this huge growth in stovepipe cans that are these massive 10, 11% ABV hazy IPAs. What do you make of that?
Yeah. So I mean, again, it comes down to occasions.
Yeah.
It's occasions, and I think a big part of it is the economic reality that consumers right now are just not feeling that good about their own personal economics and where the economy's going, and because of that, when if it's Friday night, it's Friday today, I'm going to want a beer at the end of the day. And if I walk into my bottle shop and I say, oh, I could drop, $15, 15, $18 for a 6-pack, or I could get, almost 2 beers worth in a stovepipe and all of that, like, for less than $10, that might be that's a compelling sort of option on the table. And so, yeah, and I think, there's tons of discussion about like Gen Z doesn't drink, but then also I think, from what we see in the data, that it's a lot of Gen Z are the folks, who are going after 19.2s and things like that. So Gen Z, like any generation, is not a monolith. We can't blame all the ills of the industry on the kids these days. And it's just, yeah, really meeting consumers where they're at.
Yeah. I mean, and they have their own issues. I'm far from being Gen Z, but
Yeah.
if you could go to even your grocery store, whether it's Voodoo Ranger or local,
Yeah.
and spend $3 on almost 2 beers of something,
Yeah.
10%, I don't blame them for doing it.
Yeah. For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, January, we're in the middle of January.
Yeah.
It's always a tough month for breweries for reasons like consumer spending after the holidays. Maybe you have to tighten your belt after, holiday spending. You have dry January, etc. What can breweries do to offset the struggles of the month?
Yeah. Yeah, it's something that we come up against pretty much every year. And there's no silver bullet, as you can imagine. A lot of breweries will, adjust their staffing schedule and stuff in January to try to match demand, maybe do reduced hours, things like that. But what we're seeing, breweries that are continuing to get people through the door is folks who are really leaning into programming, leaning into giving people a reason to get out in the cold. And yeah, in Chicago, that's got to be the biggest challenge anywhere, to get people out in the winter in Chicago, right? But having a reason, beyond the beer as well, like, the beer is, why the business exists. But whether that's like a theme trivia or a karaoke night or whatever it is, humans have, for as long as our species has existed, are a social creature that, something feels really good to be surrounded by community. And when craft breweries can find a way to generate that feeling and make consumers understand that you're part of something bigger by just like being out, that's really, that's a story that brings people in January, in February, all through the busy summer months, and kind of throughout the year.
And hopefully, like where we're from and where you're
Yeah.
originally based, we have Super Bowl plans that are coming up. So that'll get
Listen,
people buying beer for
well,
that first weekend in February.
I'm telling you, I'm looking for this Bills Bears Super Bowl. We'll
Oh,
look forward to it.
oh, I better not release this in Colorado right now. They might get a little upset with you.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Wait till after this weekend.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, I'll put it out Monday, so you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, no, that would be awesome. So yeah, I think breweries, especially where we're at, football
Yeah.
towns, I've already seen, a ton of ads for, hey, come watch the big game this weekend. We've got,
Yeah,
places that don't
absolutely.
even have TVs. We were going to have TVs, the sound on
Yeah,
everyone, come watch the Bears. I'm assuming it's that
yeah,
way in New
yeah.
York and Colorado right now.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that you point to a good thing that there's if breweries are able to find something that that connects people, something like a sports team, and there's the college football national championship coming up, things like that. But then basketball season, March Madness, all that. There's a million ways sports, other kind of groups that exist of people that could come together, have a beer. You might not know the people sitting at the table next to you, but you're rooting for the same thing. You like have that connection. That's that community that we're talking about.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be sports. There's
Yeah.
places that do like paint your pets, and you could do
Yeah.
like this artwork of
Yeah.
you. You send in a picture of your dog or cat, and you do this like paint by number. So there's a ton of things to get people out there.
Yeah.
I just think breweries have to be more creative and get people in the door.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, I'm more of a glass half full person. Looking ahead, what gives you optimism about the future of craft beer?
So I think what gives me optimism about this industry is what got me excited about the industry in the first place, right? Like these businesses are made up of some of the most passionate, creative, innovative artisans anywhere in the economy, anywhere, of any industry you could be in. This is just a really exciting group of people. Beer has been a social connector for millennia. This isn't a new product that kind of swung in as a fad, right? Like the local public house serving local beer has been part of the American story for 250 years, has been part of, a civilization story for much longer than that. And and so I think, the we're in strange times for sure. And I'm not just an economist in the industry, I'm also a consumer myself. And it's strange times for personal economics, with the epidemic of loneliness that's been going on. You got social media playing roles, things like this. I think the reality is that when consumers are ready to be reminded of the joy and fulfillment of community and being together, beer and craft beer is there waiting with
Oh
open
yeah.
arms, right? Like this is the industry that is hopefully, can be available to catalyze those meaningful human connections that the whole world needs right now. And that feels like a big problem that the industry can help solve. So I feel like we'll be here, and when we have a conversation in a year or 2 years, I could see us talking about fortunes going, in a very different direction. So
Well, you've got me sold. I can ready to go out to a brewery right now. But
yeah.
Matt, I really appreciate you taking time out of your day today to talk about this. You could find them over at the Brewers Association. If you're not a member, you could join now. You get a ton of good information, articles. Matt even has an article that came out today. So definitely check out the Brewers Association. I'll include the link in the show notes. But Matt, I do appreciate it, and go Bills.
Very good. Thank you very much, Dave. Go Bears. We'll
All
see
right.
it. We'll see you in February.
Sounds good. All right. Take care.
Take care.
All right, the beer that's in front of me now is a non-alcoholic beer from Pipeworks right here in Chicago. This is the NA Ninja versus Unicorn non-alcoholic double IPA. I'm so stoked about this. I'm talking about it. I talked about it here. I talked about it before with Rod J, that I think this is a way that the NA market, which is growing, but I think it's going to grow more when you have more local breweries putting out an NA offering of one of their flagships. you'll get the casual person that might not have bought an NA beer, but they see this from a brewery that they like and want to try it. So big congratulations to Pipeworks for putting this out. Doesn't really say much on the can. It just says it's brewed and bottled here in Chicago, Illinois. So let's crack open the non-alcoholic Ninja versus Unicorn. Pours really nice. What I will say about this, that sometimes in other NA beers is lacking, there's a really good foam on this. So some other NAs, the foam isn't that great, but this one looks like a regular beer. The smell is good. I do get the hop aroma there. They don't list which hops they use, but it does smell good. I get getting a little like fruitiness out of that. I'm not getting too much pine, but I think the smell is really good. That's a solid beer right there. Good flavor, has a good body, finishes well. You do get some bitterness there. Now, the beer I didn't mention, it's, when I'm pouring it, it looks a little hazy, but I get some bitterness from there like you would with a West Coast IPA. So this is a double, so I'm assuming it's still, they aggressively hop this bad boy here. I think the taste is really good. No, that's excellent. Now, I only saw 1 4-pack of this in my bottle shop, and I grabbed it. Hopefully, I'll see more, because this is the second one I've had, and I'll be drinking this a lot. I think it's really good. So if you're out and about in the Chicagoland area or wherever Pipeworks distributes, you got to pick up their NA, Ninja versus Unicorn. All right, the beer that's in front of me now is from Three Floyds. This is Turbo Reaper. It's an IPA, 7% alcohol, 47 IBUs. This is their latest West Coast style IPA. I've seen it around in my travels. I don't know if I've had this before, but I saw this at Target of all places. So hopefully it's fresh. Let me look at the bottom of the can. Oh yeah, it's good. We're good. So let's crack open the Turbo Reaper. Nice color on here. Not exactly clear like a West Coast. Got a little haziness to it. Smells good. I get a lot of stuff happening here. I get some pine. I get some citrus notes. I think it smells really good. I'm digging this. But also the can art. I neglected to mention. It's beautiful can art. Dark purple. Got some lightning. Got some dragon on here. This looks like it belongs in a Judas Priest album cover or something, but can art's good. The foam is good here. The smell is good. So far, everything's good. I haven't even tried ale. Let's give it a whirl. Not bad. Kind of liking it. Getting more of like fruit notes, like some citrus, maybe some tropical. I don't get like pine, which I did out of the aroma, but I think the taste is pretty good. Decent beer. Maybe not the best in the world I've had, but definitely not the worst. I think this is decent. If you're at Target, I mean, you could do a lot worse than Turbo Reaper. So if you're at Target, you put it in that red cart. That's going to wrap things up for this edition of Beer in Front. I thank you very much for listening. Once again, I want to thank Matt Gacioch from the Brewers Association for coming on, talking about the business of beer. Have a great week, everyone. I'll talk to you next week. And remember, sometimes the beer in front of you is the best one yet.